front page story, Baltimore Sun this past Sunday, titles this, "A Little Underdog, a rediscovered log cabin with a mysterious past in Hagerstown showcases a forgotten black community." Reggie, what say you?
I say that this is a huge deal for our community, for the city of Hagerstown, for the Jonathan Street community. To think that this was front page of the Baltimore Sun in the midst of political season, social unrest, and COVID is a pretty big deal. So this story is only going to get bigger. As you'll see from the article, I'm involved in this project. Terrence Moore and I co-founded the Western Maryland Community Development Corporation to start to work within the Jonathan Street community on this project and others. And this is starting to blossom, and there's a lot more to come.
Okay. Andy?
Yeah, anytime we can highlight such incredible history in our town, especially in a very positive, awesome note, then I think it's amazing. And it's great that Baltimore can recognize Hagerstown for our historical perspectives.
Well, and does anybody remember the article?
Yes.
And it was in the Baltimore Magazine, not in the Sun.
2016.
That's right.
Yeah, I have it on my PC somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was not a flattering article about Hagerstown.
No, and whether it had truth to it or it did not, this has really the beginnings of something fantastic. And if it does, and when it does have legs, I think that people will finally understand that Hagerstown is good ground, and we've been good ground. And it's great to highlight that, and I can't wait to see what comes from it.
Wow, I love that thought process. Henry?
Reggie, did you grab your crowbar and start popping? Because they actually found this underneath, other siding. So are you going down Jonathan Street? Anything that might be a little, hey, this is a...
Actually, this home was known to be a log cabin.
Okay.
But was
even though it was covered in siding,
Yeah.
it was known to be a log cabin. Many in the community, elders in the community knew that this was a log cabin. Obviously, the elderly homeowner, he knew that this was a log cabin underneath the siding. The city of Hagerstown did a preservation study of the Jonathan Street community in 2002. In that study, it was identified as a log cabin. So in my work through the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture and knowing about that study, I knew that this was a log cabin. But the unfortunate incident of the police officer hitting that home really exacerbated the matter. And once the siding was taken off, then the world began to know that it was a log cabin.
But you know what, Reggie? Yeah, exactly that. Now everyone knows that it's a log cabin.
So I know the talk is revitalizing and then working with Habitat to refresh up the house and then it's roughly 800 square feet? Okay,
It's
so
about
it's
600. Preservation Maryland's going to add about 200 for a kitchen.
Okay, so revitalize it and get either a single or older couple in there that's not going to have family. That's because it's not 800 square feet is kind of small.
Yes.
At least from Hagerstown standards. Okay, so get that revitalized, and they'll work with Habitat, and they'll start paying back some of the expense of the refurb on that.
Yes.
Now, maybe I'm attributing the quote to somebody else. Talk about revitalizing the Jonathan Street corridor, and I think that's fantastic.
Right.
I think it's long overdue. Okay,
Yeah.
and it's not just the current city council or the previous city council or anyone else. Okay, we can go back to, I remember when we used to have the prison down there. Things haven't changed. Okay, we have a lot of subsidized housing down there. People take pride in home ownership. Is there a way that we can try to get more homeowners down on Jonathan Street to take pride in what they have?
Absolutely, and that's a part of our mission. Because when you look at that community, that was an entrepreneurial community. And now it has been rezoned to be residential and there are no businesses there. So if you think from the early 1900s when this was an entrepreneurial business, when you had the Harmon Hotel and you had Ship's Tea Room, which were both Green Book sites in that community, none of those businesses survived that generation. They did not become generational businesses. And that speaks to wealth. So, I know we've talked before, but, You know, there's a wealth gap in this country between whites and blacks, and that wealth gap is the average white family has wealth of about has a net worth of about 171,000. The average African American family has a net worth of about 17,000. And by 2053, African Americans are expected to have negative net worth.
And this is really going on a political tangent. If you don't want to go there, Jim, flag me. 50 years ago, what was the wealth disparity? I mean, right now you're saying the wealth disparity is about 5 to 1 or 6 to 1, white income versus black income.
It's more 10 to 1.
10 to 1.
10 to 1.
Okay. What was the disparity 50 years ago?
I'll have to look back at what that was, but I would venture to say, if we just want to stick to that community, that the amount of home ownership was higher. But part of what we were dealing with at that time was the redlining of that community. So that community never saw the property values that the counterparts in other parts of the city have seen.
So your statistic, is that for Hagerstown, or what is that?
When I talk about the wealth gap, that's a national statistic.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So if you look at a community like this, it's even worse. Because when you start to look at our poverty rates and things of that nature.
So we have people down there, let's say on Jonathan Street, average income for a household is 12 to 15,000. That would be worse than 17. Is that what you're estimating?
No, he's saying net worth.
Net worth.
Okay.
So in other words, assets minus liabilities.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the goal of the project is to uplift the entire community. So the first thing that we've done is we've identified all the historic structures that are left. You know, we lost one last year. We had a very contentious meeting with the city about a year and a half ago in regards to 335 North Jonathan Street that was owned by the Moxley Band. But we conceded on that home because it was too far gone after we had independent engineers come in and see that home. But we've identified the other historic homes in the community. And part of the message that we have in regards to rebuilding the community is that we have pre-COVID, we have over 300,000 people a year visiting to see Antietam Battlefield. But when we start talking about the story and the contributions of African Americans, you can't tell that story without the Jonathan Street community. So we have a tourism angle. We have an opportunity to increase home ownership, to better the standards. We have an opportunity to revitalize the community center here, and also the MLK building that's down there.
Interesting. Well, over time, Hagerstown has had a lot of firsts, and many of them positive. Wouldn't this be a nice feather in our cap if we could get this done?
It is quickly heading in that direction. I mean, if I can just give you the two things that are on the horizon. In the middle of September, the chief archaeologist for the State Highway Administration will be here doing an archaeological dig on the property. Along with that, there's going to be a study of the property done, because one of the other things we want to analyze is what was the effects of taking Route 11 away from the Jonathan Street community and moving it to Burhans? What effect did that have on the community as well? And then the second thing that's going to happen is that we recently negotiated with Three Roads Communications out of Frederick that has done some pretty high-profile documentaries, and they're looking to do a documentary on the Jonathan Street community as well.
Interesting. Other comments?
Oh no, that's perfect.
Okay. Well, again, my only comment is, as I said, if we could have this feather in a cap, I think it proves your point. This is good ground.